Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. Today I want to talk a little bit about how to draw a gun. And there's kind of a universal process for drawing a gun. First off, in order to access the gun, you're going to have to get your concealment garment or any other clothing out of the way. You're going to have to disable any retention features on the holster, like a snap or a thong over the hammer. And you're going to want to get a good grip on the gun before you draw. Then, typically, you'll just pull the gun up to your armpit area, and then if your support hand is free, you may want to bring it in to help support the gun. Then you extend out toward the target, and as you do that, you will make the gun ready to fire, whether that means cocking the hammer on a single-action revolver or disengaging the safety on an automatic or whatever the case may be. So that's the universal procedure, but there's kind of three standard draws depending on where you wear your gun. If you wear it on your strong side with the butt of the gun facing backwards, then that would be what I would call a straight draw. Whereas if you wear it on your support side with the butt of the gun facing forward, then that would be a cross draw because you have to reach across your body to access the gun. And if you wear it on your strong side with the butt facing forward, then that would be a twist draw because you have to twist your wrist in order to draw the gun. Now, there's a lot of debate about which of these three draws is the fastest. You know, is a cross draw faster than a straight draw, or vice versa? Or what about a twist draw? So today, I've got a .22 pistol that I can set up in different holsters in any of these three configurations. And so I want to try drawing from all three different positions on a timer and see if there's actually a meaningful difference. And to keep everything consistent, I'm always going to start with my thumbs hooked in the front of my gun belt so that my hands are always in the same place regardless of which draw I'm going to do. Okay, with a straight draw, for the draws that felt right, where it didn't feel like I was fumbling anything, I was getting 1.29 to 1.5 seconds. So, figure about 1.4 seconds on average for the straight draw. Now let's try the cross draw. Okay, my best time with the cross draw was 1.39 seconds, and the average, again for draws that felt good, didn't feel like I fumbled anything, was about 1.5. So now let's try the twist draw. All right, with the twist draw, My best time, again, was 1.39 seconds, but I was a little bit less consistent, and so my average was more like 1.6 to 1.65 seconds. Okay, so for me, at least in this test, the straight draw was clearly the fastest, with an average draw time of about 1.4 seconds. The cross draw was consistently about 1/10 of a second slower than the straight draw, and then the twist draw was a little less consistent and was about another 1/10 of a second slower than the cross draw. Now, admittedly, in general shooting practice up to this point, I've certainly practiced the straight draw the most and the twist draw the least. So I would hypothesize that the difference here stems not so much from the method of draw, but from the amount of proficiency that has been developed through practice. So which of these is the fastest for you will probably be whichever one you've practiced the most. Now, of course, speed is not the only consideration when selecting a holster or choosing a draw style. You know, there are any number of pros and cons to each of the different draws. For example, I think you could argue that the straight draw is perhaps the easiest to initially develop proficiency with. I've also heard people argue that the straight draw is safer, not in any intrinsic sense, but in the sense that there's a little more margin for error. And what I mean by that is, with a straight draw, your gun is pretty much always going to be pointed either at the ground in front of you or out at the target, pointed downrange. You know, you have to make a pretty gross error in your hand motions to point the gun anywhere else. Whereas with a cross draw, if you do it correctly, you know, the gun is initially in the holster, you draw it up to here, you extend out toward the target. Again, it's only pointed at the ground in front of you and then out at the target. But if you do a sloppy cross draw, you could do something like this, where you kind of muzzle a whole sector of your environment as you're moving the gun out toward the target. Similarly, you know, with a twist draw, you could conceivably do something kind of like that, where again you're sweeping a whole sector of your environment with the muzzle as you move the gun out to the target. That's a very sloppy draw, and it's not going to be fast or effective, but it's something that can happen under stress. Then again, if you're wearing a gun for a right-handed straight draw, it's really only accessible to your right hand. Whereas if you wear a gun for a right-handed cross draw, it's automatically in the right position for a left-handed twist draw, or vice versa. So if you're concerned about being able to access your gun with either hand, then practicing a cross draw and or twist draw could have some real benefits. And finally, it's probably prudent to point out that while I've demonstrated these 3 different draw methods using, you know, a drop loop tie-down holster on a separate gun belt and a single-action revolver, you know, in a manner that's sort of iconic of the Old West, these 3 methods are almost equally applicable today to more modern types of holsters. I mean, if you have a typical strong side holster, that's just a very high and tight variant of a straight draw. If you've got a small of the back holster, depending on which way the butt of the gun is facing, that could be a variant of a straight draw or of a twist draw. If you've got an appendix carry rig, that's just a very short cross draw. If you've got a shoulder holster, that's just a very long and high cross draw. So these 3 methods can be generalized to cover the vast majority of holsters and draw methods and carry options that are available today. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little exploration or exposition of these 3 different draw methods. You know, I'd made a couple of different holsters for this gun that I wanted to try out with these different styles, and figured while I was at it, might as well make a video about it. So, until next time, thank you for watching the Idahoan Show.